All right, I will call the meeting to order at 6:01. Since we are all kind of mostly not in the room, can we do an out loud roll call? And I can't really see anybody, so Katie Benson, I know you're there. Do you want to start?
David Martin here in person.
Yep.
Lane Millington here in person.
Cheryl Hammond. Lisa Sanders here in person.
Caitlin Benson, board member on Zoom.
Anybody else out in Zoom?
Kate Leaf from the high school.
And then okay, so we've got all the board members there. Okay, perfect. And then I would look for an approval of the agenda, and it would make sense if we have to add a personnel thing that I think we can talk about in public when we get there, if we could do it right before the executive session. So what is that, 10, 11, in between 11 and 12? And I had no other additions or deletions if anybody else does.
Looks good.
I move to approve the agenda with the stated addition.
Second.
Thank you. And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Please speak up, because again, I can't see you. Sorry. Okay. Seems good. All right. Then approval of meeting minutes of June 12th. I only noticed one typo. Hang on, I put it on my phone so I wouldn't forget it. I believe it was section 9. That said, it's supposed to say those and it says hose. I don't think it's the end of the world, but, and of course my phone's not going to pull up that note. Can anybody just bear with me? Sorry.
Section 6.
You
found it. We got it.
You got it. Perfect.
So I move to approve the minutes with the correction of hose to those in section 6.
6, that was close. All right. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes as amended?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Please speak up again. Perfect. They sound approved. Public comment. Are you seeing any online, Lane?
Nope. No hands.
No hands. All right. Perfect. The annual agenda draft review.
So most of this is related to the policy governance piece, and a lot of it's just informational. Remember that there is the strategic kind of planning session for the district, which is going to be related to policy governance on August 12th at 6 p.m. It will be online in hybrid format over at Green Mountain High School. So the annual agenda that's here, I can give you kind of a broad outline of what it is. And there's not really anything that needs to be done with it at this point, other than, if people can think about it between now and the next meeting and decide if there's changes or anything that's needed. There are processes with policy governance that happen the same time every year. And so what the annual agenda does is it puts those out there so everybody knows when they occur. And most of it relates to monitoring. So those are the reports that are written that the board reviews to make sure that I and the rest of the district is in compliance with the executive limitations policies. And the way that I set this up was so that the executive limitations that the board would be looking at in each of those months is kind of associated with what's going on in the world at that time of the year anyway. Like the financial executive limitations are in and around the time that we're doing budget and things like that. There are a couple of other things that are on there that happen yearly as well. Like when the budget vote is, when we've got to do the annual meeting and do the preparation for that and vote for the date, voting on the warning. There's a 8-hour training that should happen with the superintendent and the board chairs. Typically that's done at the SBA conferences, and the first one's coming up in October. They usually do that in the spring and the fall. So the fall one is on here for this year. But I don't know if there's questions on that. But it's really just the stuff that happens every year.
So I know with Green Mountain, we voted specifically that the policies would come into effect as we got the interpretations and approved and said, yes, we think that's a good interpretation. Is that true here as well?
They haven't spoken of it.
Who hasn't?
The board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, as TRSU, we don't know when or how these policies are in effect?
So what I'm doing with the policies here, so if you take a look at August, so you'll actually see these two, making sure I'm not confusing TRSU with Green Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So 2.0 and 2.8, the interpretations are done, as well as what possible evidence could be to show that they are in compliance. And so there are usually 2 reads on these documents. So, right, you kind of get it this month, ask kind of generic questions, and then you got a month to really look it over. And so the goal of the board would be that when you're receiving these this year, would be to look at them and make sure the interpretations are reasonable. And what will happen on the 12th is part of the work that Jeannie's going to do is kind of talking the board through, okay, what does it mean to be reasonable? If it's not reasonable, we actually had fun setting up some kind of interpretations that the board, that were logical, rational, reasonable, but not what the board intended.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it's going to be, okay, board, you got to practice what you do when, you hit the situation, how you go in and you change the policy. So yes, they will, regardless, both will be voting on it now that I'm thinking about it, because you have to determine the original reasonableness of the interpretations.
Okay,
Yeah.
so where it's listed, what will be, when the interpretations will be given,
Yeah.
we should count on the meeting after that as when we would say, we would actually vote, yes, we agree that the interpretation is reasonable, and then that policy and interpretation become effective.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And that was kind of the point of this year. And then next year, the evidence would start going in. And then remembering that each of these reports looks backward. It looks backwards in the past year. They're not forward-looking reports. Yeah, questions?
Thank you. That made it much clearer for me as well. So we're really just looking at the draft agenda. We have no action to take on it. And is that sort of a work in progress, I'm assuming, Lane?
Yeah, it's one of the things that Jeannie is going to talk about at the training session on the 12th. Okay. This board was just, you're so early in the month, you're ahead of the training. The other 2 have their next board meeting after that training. So it kind of made sense to give people a heads up.
Perfect, thank you. TRSU board goals.
So this is more of an informational piece if it's something that the board wants to do. Typically there's what's called the ownership linkage. One of the primary roles of the board is making sure that it's connecting with what we call the ownership. In other words, the community, the people that are actually giving us their tax dollars to do the work on their behalf. And typically there's a plan around that and goals. Like, how is the board going to connect with the community? How are you going to hear from them in terms of what their needs are? How are you going to hear if what we're doing is currently meeting their needs or things need to change? And so that would be kind of a planning session, maybe, either a whole board or a subcommittee would get together and try to figure out what those goals are for this year around ownership linkage. It's not something you have to do, but it typically is a part of policy governance.
And I think that's usually in some form what we've done at the retreat when we've done the full day. So I would, I don't know about tonight, but it would seem to me like it would make sense for us to have that. If it's not going to be a part of the retreat on the 12th, then we should find a time to do that, even if it's a shorter special meeting at some point.
Yeah, and I'll talk with Jeannie. I'm pretty clear on what she's doing, but this might be something that we could add easy enough.
Okay,
Ownership linkage goals.
perfect.
And
And
then
then,
the planning session and training is pretty short, right? And there's kind of a lot of things that have been scheduled for that. To me, it does seem to make sense to have a special meeting or an extra meeting once people are back around and we can have the full board to talk about the linkage,
goals. Yeah,
linkage goals.
Yeah. I agree. I think it would make sense when more people are around, for sure.
And again, I'm not asking you, I'm just giving information.
Yeah.
And then new board member orientation.
This was, came up a little bit with GM. And it was just one of those things that I wanted to put out there to see if the boards were interested in this. Typically there's an orientation packet and a plan in place so that when new board members come on, typically after the March vote, we've got something to give them and somebody they can sit down with them and talk them kind of through what things normally look like, answer any questions that they have, and then kind of point them in the direction of the VSBA and potentially any trainings that they might offer that are important. Because I didn't see anywhere that we actually had orientation plan for new members, which unfortunately is typical in Vermont, but.
Yeah, so I mean, anybody on this board will have gotten it through their school district board, hopefully, or not, as the case may be. So is there a need for additional member orientation onto the TRSU board? I mean, when I was put on the TRSU board, I was a little confused about what it was, but there wasn't really orientation.
There's one in the back of that chair.
Yeah, I don't know, this is Caitlin. I don't know if like a full orientation's needed.
Or you
But-
decide, hey, yeah, this is something we should do or not. It's not. Kind of makes sense what you said in terms of, it should really be happening at the LMH in the Green Mountain.
I think Katie tried to say something.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't get it.
I don't think she was talking about us.
No, no.
No, I do think she was. Katie,
Yeah.
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that the full orientation may not be needed, but knowing the difference with what's discussed at which board may be helpful.
I think I think it's something we should do, but I also agree that it should be at the individual board level because I think in this case, they're going to cover more people. And then those people would be moving to the TRSU. And I think we could do a TRSU, catch up if we needed.
Yeah, I think that the best people to do the TRSU orientation in some cases are the school district board members who are coming off of the TRSU or are already on it. Like there's part of, I'm not sure who else would do that other than within the school district boards.
Yeah. So,
Lane, is that something you can put on? I don't know where Green Mountain stands with it, but certainly on the Ludlow Mount Holly board agenda, if not this coming meeting, but maybe for September.
yeah, I'm happy to. It is on, I believe it is on the Green Mountain agenda.
Okay. Yeah,
I
let's
think-
add it to ours as well, maybe for September, just based on a lengthy agenda already. Any other discussion about that? All right. Summer strategic planning session, August 12th at 6 in Green Mountain. Anything else we need to talk about for that?
Oh, but hopefully should be a pretty good session. Jeannie sounds really excited to come and actually do the work, which was surprising given, the time of year it is, midsummer when everybody's running their vacations.
And then mandatory board training, October 29th and 30th in Burlington.
So that's the VSBA and the Vermont Superintendents Association conference that we touched on a little bit ago, that usually the board chairs and the superintendent go to one of them, either the fall or the spring. I typically try to go to both, depending upon, what's happening in the district. If there's a lot going on, sometimes I can't make it out. But just so that people are aware, it's open to anybody and all board members who may want to attend. It's on October 29th and 30th. It's at the Doubletree in Burlington this year. And if there are any board members that want to go, just let me know and I can get you signed up. I'll work with Cindy to do that.
Is it a 2-day conference or an either or day conference?
It's either or both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any questions about that? Looks good. Policy governance rehearsal.
Yeah, so this is, and Jeannie talked about this, so again, this isn't something to actually do, but just to provide the board with an example of what they look like. One of the pieces is that there's typically a little bit of what they call board training at each of the sessions. And basically, this is what they look like. It's just a scenario that typically a board member might encounter. And then the board kind of talks its way through, okay, as a board or as individual board members, how would we respond to this? And typically what you do is it all depends upon what your policies say. And so it's you take a look at the scenario, okay, what policies do we have that might cover this? Is it board duty? Is it superintendent duty? The policies should be clear about that. And if the superintendent responded to it, when he responded, did he follow the policies that we have, the executive limitations? So it's really just a discussion. They usually take probably, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, but they're usually pretty good discussions. And so that's a part of the typical ongoing training that happens. Also keeps people connected to what the policies say, because there's a lot of them. So just as an example for folks to be aware of. Jeannie will probably talk about that too as well.
So is that something we're going to start after the 12th?
It's up to the board. Again, I'm showing what's usually typical.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that sounds good. Especially at the TRSU level where our meetings don't generally run as long as some others. So I think that would be a good discussion on the 12th, and then we can revisit it again, obviously, in September. Yep. And then district reports.
So the superintendent's one is in there. Actually, all the reports are in the documents. Just to remind folks, what we've been doing is we've been trying to drop the documents into that shared folder for everybody as they come up, so that folks have an opportunity to kind of peruse them kind of at your leisure. And part of the policy governance is to try to save the board time so you can focus on the important stuff. So a lot of it comes down to, taking the time to kind of go through those documents. So usually those reports are, everybody's read the report. Are there any questions? Yes, there are. And we talk about it, or no, they're not. And we just move on to the more important things in the agenda. But a lot of work, and you'll see this also in the curriculum director's report. that has been going on this summer to try to get ready for the fall. The principals have met once with me. We did a little training session together, and have started to actually work on interpreting the ends. They have pretty good drafts at this point in time that are in place. The expectation is that by the third week of September, they're going to have an opportunity to run them past their staff to get some feedback there, and then to create kind of finalized ends interpretations that would then come to the board at that point in time. The big thing that they're struggling with right now, which makes sense, and I may have Jeannie connect a little bit with the group, is that a lot of the things that they want to measure, right, if you talk about adaptability, you know, what is it? How do you measure it? What is it in the context of education today? They're choosing measurements that are very complex, and that's not really the goal, right? What do we got that's out there, or what are we going to add that you know, people can get the data really quick and it's meaningful data and use? And so I think that's the only thing they're struggling with. But other than that, they're doing a really good job in terms of that work. We've got the teacher supervision, evaluation, and growth plan. That is going into effect this fall. We did some work. We provided opportunities for the staff to have input into that last year. The whole reason for this is that it really supports the ends, right? We're not actually the ones as administrators that are doing most of the work to make sure that the ends happen, right? Because it's dealing with student achievement, things along those lines. It's the teachers that really have the direct contact. So the purpose of the supervision and evaluation plan is to really have them set goals as well that they're tracking with data to make sure that they're supporting the ends overall in terms of making sure the students are achieving the thresholds that we're setting through our educational goals. Let's see. Oh yeah, the school-based emergency operation plans, we actually have to talk about it again. But those, Kate actually did a really good job running this last year. She went out, got the information from the state to make sure that we were meeting the requirements as we redid our school-based emergency operation plans. Put a timeline together for the principals to follow. And the principals did a really good job of putting that all together. So that work is currently complete. Probably September-ish, I'll make sure the board sees copies of what that looks like. And that way it's showing up in an agenda. So if the state ever looks back and say, did you get this done? Yeah, it's right here. The board got to see it. We've been talking about the policy governance piece a bit on and off. The big thing though, I think that's starting to come up a little bit more, I had an open forum last night and had a few people that showed up there, which was kind of nice, is that the Act 73, the redistricting. And so coming up this fall, we've already got the dates on the calendar right off the bat in September. It's going to be trying to connect with the community to hear what their concerns and what their thoughts are about, you know, preserving the parts of the district that are important to everybody with that potential redistricting plan. And being able to put that communication together to go to the redistricting committee so that hopefully they take some of those desires into account as they're doing their work. They literally are supposed to have their 3 different options done in the next 4 months. I mean, it's a fast timeline.
Just real quick,
Yep.
right now, the date we have for one of those forums and for the GM board
I have one in
meeting is
August,
the
too.
same.
Oh, okay, I'll take a peek.
Yeah, I think they were both announced for September 18th.
Let me write that one down so I double check. Check out Sydney.
And I'll discuss that some more a little further down on the agenda.
And then, actually, it was kind of fun to watch them today. The principals, we had a session together and talked about, you know, the current report cards, the fact that they're not really understandable by parents, and the roadblock that puts up in terms of us being able to solicit the parents to help us in our work with the kids. right? If they get the report cards and it doesn't make any sense and they don't know if their kids are doing well or poorly, it's hard to get them to come in and work with us and help us. So there were a couple of goals. One of them was to make sure that if we look at a redesigned report card, parents can tell how their kids are doing at a glance. And so that's something that they've been working on. Part of it too is to use objective data. We've got big testing systems for ELA and math. There is no reason why a lot of that data can't just be auto-fed into the report card because it is standards-based. It records how the students are doing in terms of their proficiency on each of the standards in ELA and math. And so they've got a system set up to be able to do that. They're working on how to get the data for the other disciplines that don't have an auto feed method, but the goal is to really make things more efficient for the teachers because that's one of the problems with standards-based report cards is they take an incredible amount of time for the teachers to do the data entry for them. And so we want to make it clearer for the students, and we also want to make it more efficient for the teachers. I would rather have them spend their time planning and assessing and working with the kids directly. And yeah, it was kind of funny watching. They were, I won't say excited about it, but they were motivated because they were butting heads on a couple of things here and there, which was kind of fun to watch. But I'm pretty impressed with the progress they've made in creating a draft to start talking to people about.
Let me say that I know that there's some parents that don't have any access to any computer. And that I hope that the process is set up in a way to ensure that they'll get something in the postal mail, hard copy of something. If, and how and if you need a way to figure out who has access and who doesn't.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, they may already do this, is there should be the notification that goes home in the backpack paperwork. This is if you don't, let us know and we'll provide you with paper copies.
And I guess I hope for something more in the other direction, saying that you send your notice out electronically, and if somebody doesn't respond,
Gotcha.
Then you assume that they don't have the access because, if the kid takes something home in the backpack, parents may or may not actually see it, unless they have to sign it and send it back,
Right.
So, if nothing comes back, then, yeah.
I like the idea of the, like the MAPS testing and that being auto-fed right onto the report card for parents, obviously, but also it might help in.
Don't say the ulterior motive out loud.
What's that?
I said, don't say the ulterior motive out loud.
Oh, to incentivize the kids to do better, that one?
There's an ulterior motive here, which is just by happenstance. But a lot of these testing systems are new. And some of the schools are really good at making sure all the kids do it, and some of them are not.
Oh, that too, yeah.
So if it auto feeds onto the report card, they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is a third benefit, but I like the idea too that kids might feel more compelled to do their best on the assessments, and we get better information that way. Any other? Whoops. Sorry, I just.
The timeline.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Emma can probably say they had a pretty well developed one that I saw when they were working today.
So this year is the plan?
Yeah.
That's the fall. Cool.
Yeah. And it sounded like, I was getting really nervous about, making sure that the staff, were involved and it wasn't a surprise. But what I got from the principals talking today is it's something that they've wanted for a while now. So I think it sounds like there's going to be a lot of support if we do it well. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. And so we have the facilities report in the folder, the curriculum report in the folder. We have a financial report in the folder, but Cheryl, do you want to speak to the highlights since you're there?
Highlights are 25 is over, stats have been filed, and we're working toward the audit right now.
And she's smiling again.
You're smiling again, yay. And the bank ladies over here aren't shooting me anymore when I go in, so we're good.
Well, you know, sometimes when things go smoothly, you kind of think, oh, what did I miss? Like, it doesn't always go that smoothly. We did get money back at the central office. That's an important, special education was over like it normally is, but overall, I think that the year went well and we're rolling into 26.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments for the reports?
So on the facilities report, it talked about the need for the new roof in Mount Holly. Can I assume that that'll be on the agenda at our meeting?
That's your priority report that folks were asking for. So yeah, that is part of what's in the LMH.
Right, I mean, right, I mean, we'll get some information and discussion at our meeting next week.
Yeah.
Right, good. No, we don't need to do it here.
Yeah. Old business, policy adoption F3, asset capitalization, second read.
Cheryl, you willing to talk that one?
It's been so long since I looked at it, Lenny. The
was
basic
so
premise
exciting.
of it is that, is you have to capitalize anything that's over $5,000 and the federal government moved it to 10, so we moved it to stay with the federal government.
And so is there, we would need a motion to adopt policy F3.
I move to adopt policy F3, asset capitalization.
Second,
Thank you. And then any discussion about that?
makes sense.
Any online?
Don't see anything.
All right. So with no discussion, are we in favor of adopting policy F3, asset capitalization, as it is? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody online's opposed either. Speak now. Thank you. All right, so policy F3 is approved. Thank you. New business, new staff contracts.
There is one, and this is Tammy Myers. This is a hire for special education. She is going to be working in the intensive needs program. Mary actually was doing a really good job of trying to create intensive needs programs here. There's already one that exists within Ludlow Elementary School. But she's trying to build 2 or 3 programs up at the high school with the intent of being able to bring those students back. Sending them out is 100,000 plus, and then probably an equivalent amount in terms of the transportation. Being able to serve them here will probably do a better job, and the cost is significantly less. And so this is a person that would be helping with that program, and I believe in a directorship
It's for the intensive needs.
at Ludlow. Yeah.
And that was budgeted for, Lane?
Yep.
Yeah.
BA in psychology from Castleton State, Masters of Education from Southern New Hampshire University. She's got 27 years of teaching experience. She was an educational consultant for the Vermont I-Team, which was a UVM-based program for students that needed special support. She was a special educator at Woodstock, where she set up a specialized program and provided services for students with intensive learning needs. Did a lot of adult training for paraprofessionals and teachers. And she case managed students on IEPs, provided specialized services to students on IEPs. So she's the whole ball, actually very experienced and would be a very good hire.
So I would look for a motion to hire Karen Myers. Am I saying, do I have the right name?
Yeah.
Tammy, sorry, I can't see the 3 things I'm looking at. I'm trying. Tammy Myers for the special ed position.
So move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion about Tammy? All right. All those in favor of hiring Tammy for the special ed position?
RS. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Are we all good?
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of hiring Tammy?
Aye.
I thank you. And is anybody opposed? And if you're online, please speak up. All right, thank you, and welcome, Tammy. Next on the agenda is Executive Limitations Interpretations First Read, EL 2.0 Global Executive Constraints, and EL 2.8 Communication and Support to the Board.
Yeah, and this is the first go at interpretations. It's actually good because they'll be similar but not quite the same as Green Mountains because the role of the TRSU board is a little bit different, right? We're an administrative board, they're a school board working more with the concerns about the schools. If you take a look at 2.8, this one's probably easier to see what the format looks like at least. And go to where it says provision 1 on page 2. It's about 2/3 of the way down. So what you'll see, the part that's in the italics, that's the actual board policy. The next piece is the interpretation, right? In this case, interpretation is the superintendent shall submit all monitoring reports on time with reasonable allowances for emergencies and unforeseen circumstances. The report will be presented in a format acceptable to the board. So this is the interpretation of what the board is asking of us. And then the rationale is provided for why that interpretation is used. And usually it's based in best practice where that exists. And so there's not really a lot to do except to look things over, ask questions if there's parts of the format or people are unsure of what the parts and pieces are supposed to mean. And then hopefully it leads to a rich discussion, with the next board meeting.
My only question was why they're sort of written as double negatives. The superintendent shall not cause or allow the board to be uninformed.
You want to answer? You want me to?
Yeah, so that's part of policy governance in that you can specify what someone should not do. It would be impossible to specify everything that they should do. So policy governance is actually written that way to specify, don't do this very
But everything else that
defined set of things.
Yeah, she's got it. So everything else that we've told if we've told you not to do it, everything outside of that you're able to do in terms of pursuing the board's ends, goals.
I guess I don't like that idea, but
It's
Hard to read.
okay, yeah.
It's through me for a loop.
No, I don't like it philosophically, right? I'd much rather be telling the superintendent what we want him to do than telling him what we don't want him to do.
So the problem also becomes is if you have, and it's the same thing with me why I try not to micromanage. If I have a good capable group of people, which I do, if I'm overly directive by saying this is the only things that you can do, it destroys the creativity and their ability to bring in their experience and solve the problem.
Oh, yeah, no, right, I can understand. I mean, but again, because if we wanted to micromanage, we could tell you, don't fail to do such and such, right? Don't fail to make sure you're in the office at 8:45 every morning, silly, we could do silly things by writing them in a, equally well as writing them negatively as writing them positively.
Well, the ends, if I'm correct, are not like this. They are, these are the things we want to see, these are the things we want to happen. This is kind of a different set.
Okay.
She's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ends are what you want us to achieve. And this is telling us what we're not allowed to do while we seek to achieve those.
Okay.
And it threw me for a loop when I first read it too. It felt really awkward, and I'm like, this sounds really negative, and it's not once it's in practice. It was kind of funny. About 3 months in, I was like, oh, I get this. I understand why they did it this way.
So I did have one question that might be for the next meeting or further discussion or things like that. But with 2.0, the policy is really about not allowing any of these things very generally. The interpretation right now includes by staff, students, parent, community members are the boards. And to me, that seems almost impossible, right? Like how could you keep community members from doing something illegal or like, and with the boards, a little bit circular in that there are at least some parts of it, like hiring you, that you couldn't, like if we did that in some illegal way, you wouldn't be able to.
Oh, well, yes, I could.
Okay.
There's an ethics board. But the idea behind this, and again, it's just an interpretation, is that the organizations are made up of the people. And so if an organization is going to be behaving in an ethical manner, it means the people have to. And so therefore, the way that we control that is through our protocols and our policies and responding when something happens appropriately to try to prevent it from happening again in the future. And so that's kind of the spirit in which this is written. And that includes me as well. You know, if I do something that's inappropriate or unethical, that needs to be dealt with as well.
Yeah, so maybe it is just more discussion later, but I saw that more as actually part of 2.8, the communications, like if a board is messing up, you should let us know. That would be, and you're aware of it, that you should let us know, but the piece of will not allow any practice for things that are not under your control, for better lack of a better term, seems.
So read the first sentence of your policy. And the italics.
In 2.0?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. The superintendent shall not cause or allow.
Yeah, so that was your wording. As a board.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
that-
right.
but what-
Any practice, so I would say should not cause or allow any of these things like in the school buildings or by employees or like the things that you could actually do something about.
Oh, if a board member did something unethical or illegal, Secretary of State, I would report it to them and they would come down and they would say, knock it off or else we're gonna take over your board. If it were illegal, I have a responsibility to report it to the police or whatever other legal organization is out there. So we're talking about pretty extreme things here. We're not talking the basic day to day.
I guess for me,
And I have been in those positions a couple of times in my life in the last district.
Now, to me, the interpretation makes more sense, where it says this means superintendent works to actively prevent and address any actions or conditions, by any of those people, right?
right,
Because that's obvious, it is within your power to track, to address, and prevent, right?
Right.
Even if you can't stop somebody
You
from
can't,
doing something,
yeah.
right?
yeah,
And so I think I kind of agree that allow, it might be too strong a word back up in the policy, right? Because,
So the board, since you are the body that is creating the policy, and the points you're making are good, I'm just having fun getting the debate going. But the board could change that wording, right? That's in your purview to do.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of what you do. So if I come up with an interpretation that's reasonable, but not really what you want, you go back and you tweak the policy wording to kind of steer it in a little bit more the direction that the board is seeking.
yeah. Yeah, and again, this may make much more sense the next time, but this idea that you would not allow a student or a community member to do anything unethical, like it doesn't seem possible, I guess.
Lisa, can I I'm with you on this, and I was having those same thoughts when we were in a meeting with Jeannie, and one of the ways she sort of helped it become a little bit clearer for me, and I think until we really start immersing ourselves in it, it's not going to be clear. She's, you know, like if a community member does something at a basketball game, we have no control over that, right? But we have the ability to respond and to make it have appropriate action. I guess I'm not going to quote her. I don't remember her exact words, but that was sort of the scenario in my head. You know, a parent says something or does something in a game that's not appropriate, and we have an obligation to respond to that. Does that make sense? And am I interpreting that correct, do you think, Lane?
Yeah, but I also understand the allow concern, because that is pretty definitive.
Right.
It's not either or. Superintendent shall not cause or allow, or a superintendent shall work to not, you know, would be more, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I tried to address that now that I'm looking at it, and along with what David was saying, you know, I kind of softened the language a little bit in the interpretation. Superintendent works actively, basically to prevent or address the conditions.
Yeah, and I can look at it more and see if I have any specific suggestions or get it.
When you talk about the board has the ability to tweak these policies as they go along, does that have to go through 2 reads? So it's a process.
So I'm bound by the policy as it stands until they actually change it, and they can't come after me and say, you're not doing your job because this is what we want. Well, it's not what you want. It's got to be what the policy says. And usually if it's something that I can do and it's not unreasonable, we do it anyway. But, you know, I'm bound to what the policies are. And part of that is for protection of the administration, right? You know, I'm following through on what you've asked, and so you can't, you know, beat me up and say that that's inappropriate when it's what you're telling me I have to do. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was a good discussion.
And so we will reread these and bring them back for discussion in September and then a vote in September.
Potentially, I mean, the board, if there's changes that the board wants to make and needs time to consider, you can always push it off, but they should go through two reads, because especially this one, this is the biggest one in all the executive limitation. That one's going to take some time to digest.
Right. Thank you. Dave, Rural School Community Alliance update.
Well, as you all know, under Act 73, the redistricting commission is supposed to, over the next 4 months, come up with no more than 3 plans, right? And one of the plans is required to retain existing school districts and merge supervisory unions instead of merging districts, right? And the folks at the Rural School Community Alliance pushed hard for that alternative to be in the legislation, and are recommending that districts and supervisory unions communicate with the board, with the commission, to say that yes, that's what we want. You know, that we would rather, we don't have to say we like the idea of merging with Rutland or Springfield or somebody else, right? But that we would rather have the supervisory union be merged than have our districts be merged. Because by retaining the individual districts, we still have a large level of local control over our own schools. Whereas if we merge with Rutland or Springfield or somebody else, then we'll have very small voices, you know, saying what we want to have happen in Ludlow and Mount Holly, and hard to get attention even of the board. Whereas if we retain our districts, then we retain our individual boards, and to have a combined supervisory union. And the claim is that by merging supervisory unions you'll get much better efficiencies, just because you're bigger. I mean, you know, and I'm dubious of that claim, because it seems to me, how many principals can one superintendent, you know, how many schools and principals can he actively oversee and manage and support? You know, right now he has 5 principals and a special ed director and a facilities director and a curriculum director.
Two districts with different rules.
Yep, right. But if we merge supervisory unions, and instead of having 5 schools, you now had 15 or 20 schools, and one person couldn't possibly do that. You'd need assistant superintendents, right? And you'd need assistant special ed directors and facilities directors and curriculum directors. And whether you end up saving any money, again, I'm skeptical, but that's what the legislators decided they wanted to do. And so what I would like to do is propose that we as a board adopt a resolution expressing our support for merging the supervisory unions and retaining our school districts. And I can read the resolution and give you a copy if that makes your life easier. But so whereas local control of schools increases citizens' involvement with our schools and results in better student outcomes, and whereas any savings or improved outcomes that could result from merging school districts could also be achieved by merging supervisory unions. The Two Rivers Supervisory Union, being composed of the member districts of Ludlow, Mount Holly Unified Union School District and the Green Mountain Union School District, moves to remain a supervisory union and is open to joining with other supervisory unions under the terms of Act 73 if a larger supervisory union can provide at least the same level of services to our schools at a lower cost. Our purpose is to optimize cost savings and efficiencies where possible, while maintaining local democratic engagement, oversight, and accountability in order to achieve excellent educational outcomes for our community's children and youth at a cost Vermonters can afford. This resolution will be submitted to the new redistricting task force.
Dave, I have a question. When that wording, and this is not a judgment, it's a question, is that wording something the Alliance came up with and several school districts are using to move forward? Or is that written by you or?
It's some of each. It's adapted from what the association came up with. Their language, they were a little more supportive of the mergers of supervisory unions, and said that I don't have theirs in front of me, but that they were more actively supporting the idea of merging supervisory unions. Whereas I put it as you heard with say, yes, we're fine with doing it if we still get the services and it doesn't cost anymore, right?
Yeah, John Castle, I think, is part of that group. He's
right.
He understands that very well. He was up the Northeast. I mean, I think he had like 16 different districts in his union, and he liked it that way. He kept it that way. So he's a really good person and resource.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, right. There are definitely people on the commission who were recommended by the RSCA and who understand all of these issues. Again, their suggestion is that we express to the task force our preference, you know, and basically our preference not to have our districts and boards be merged away.
Yeah, I guess my big question is, what is the defined relationship between the supervisory unions and the school districts? So at least within TRSU, I definitely have the feeling that TRSU is providing services for the districts, right? But if that's not written, codified, you know, if that's not really strong, then potentially do you have a supervisory union saying, okay, you school district don't get to exist anymore, or you school district need to cut, your budget in half, or like, yeah, is that relationship specified enough that a big supervisory union couldn't change what the boards, the districts are doing?
I only having fragments, because thinking back, I think one of at least the early intents was to consolidate boards. So you're gonna have a transition board, and then you're gonna have one board for the entire union.
Right.
And it would be that board in conjunction, I believe, with the Secretary of Education to be able to decide on budgets and closures.
Right, but that wasn't the supervisory union model.
Yeah.
That was having a single district, us and Brattleboro and everything in between.
But if you had the separate districts in there, that would seem to imply that you would have boards for each district. And so you would have greater control over things.
Right, I mean, the intention at least, and as I said, I don't know what the law says about what supervisory unions can do and cannot do. But the same, I mean, my understanding is that other supervisory unions work the same way, more or less as us. There's some variation, some do food service and some don't, there's some services that not every supervisory union provides, right? But that's
Right.
But I don't
Dave,
think-
I guess my questions are sort of, I am in full support of more control at a more local level. My fear is sort of where like Lisa's saying, where are those provisions that what we consider a district currently and what we consider a supervisory union currently, that the state's not going to change what those things look like. And, I don't have a lot of trust at the moment for this process. And also currently, unless something's changed and I haven't picked up on it, there's really not a lot of representation for our area in this committee. And that makes me feel very uneasy as well. And so while I do want to support the intent of what your resolution is, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's saying enough, right? I'm not sure that it's exactly implying why we want to keep our districts. And maybe that's my only question. That's really where I stand on it. I don't know. And I don't know what that other document looked like. And I don't know how other people feel about reading it and adopting it tonight. I know time is important. That's my only.
No, I think that the problem is that the commission is not charged with redefining the roles of unions and districts. That's not one of their assignments. Their only assignment is to prepare up to 3 different plans for mergers. And to me, the reason for going ahead now, even though, I share your unease, I think that there's a huge risk of, nobody knows what the legislature is going to do come January once they get these various proposals. But I think it's important for the commission to hear from districts and supervisory unions that they don't want their districts to be merged, right?
I agree.
And sure, I'd rather not have our supervisory union be merged either, but they're supposed to come up with unions or districts that have about 4,000 students in them.
There wouldn't be any savings because we don't neighbor another supervisory union. So if you merge with another supervisory union, there really wouldn't be an efficiency because geographically you could share. You couldn't use their buses because it's gonna be too far.
Not enough time for a 0.5 teacher here to get over to the other.
But I think that with nearby districts, even if they didn't have a supervisory union, they could say, all you districts go into the supervisory union.
Great, yeah.
We would still be very far away, as we will for schools and
So
everything else.
what I'm getting from just a quick look at the law while we're sitting here, school boards will still hold the power to close schools, but they must follow the established procedures. But again, what the school board looks like, it's going to be the regional board. And then there was that diminishment of power of the boards as well. So Montpelier is going to take over a lot of the operational decisions, some of the funding decisions, standardized curriculum across the state, will control that. So they ended up getting a lot more power as well. But right now, whatever the school board structure is at the time are the folks that, as long as they have some public consultation as a part of the process, have the ability to close schools.
Yeah.
Lane, do you have thoughts about Dave's resolution or the resolution? I shouldn't.
I read it earlier and I think it's pretty good, but I like the idea that you brought up was, stating a little bit clearer why we want this. That kind of made sense to me when I heard it, but I thought it was very well done.
I guess my fear, Dave, is I'm thinking back to the last time we were in a similar situation with, I don't even remember what number we're on now. When we, was it 46 or was there one since 46? I don't know. Where we were outright lied to, when we had to close our high school and we were outright lied to by the Secretary of Education himself in a meeting in the public. And I feel like they're changing the rules in the middle of the game always. And I feel really strongly that we're going to do a lot of this and we're still not going to see any savings. And that is going to be detrimental to our kids if people who don't see that. I get that there's a need to change something because it's not working the way it is. I just don't think this is the change that's going to make it better. And I think that is really important. And I don't know how to express that to people who already have their mind made up. And those people live in the north part of our state and not down here where it's really going to impact us, I don't think.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'll completely agree with those concerns. And I think to me that would be a separate resolution that we send to the legislature, not to the redistricting commission. Because again, the redistricting commission won't, it's not one of their assignments to look at the interactions between unions and boards and who decides what and what gets decided in Montpelier. And that's going to be a decision that the legislature ultimately makes.
I think the point on the local school boards is going to be incredibly important, because typically what happens in a system like this is that when the law starts to be implemented, even with the best designs and best intents, it's going to screw some things up. And the best thing to do when that happens is to be able to respond to it and tweak it and make it better so that it's not having a negative impact. If you have a centralized group of people that are overseeing this, they are not going to be sensitive to what's happening in the districts when those inevitable, I don't even know what to call them, but things occur. Whereas if the local boards are still in existence, they can at least communicate that, right? This is what we're experiencing that you don't see. And so I that's one of the worries that I have if you've got a centralized group, that they're going to be insulated from the actual impact of what's going on and not be able to tweak stuff as it needs to be changed to make sure things work the way they're supposed to.
No, I mean, it seems that the evidence that I've seen is that the Agency of Education doesn't have the capacity to do what what's required to do right now under law, right? And the idea that they can then decide, well, how much money each school district should get and do a calendar and do the curriculum and do all this kind of stuff that they just don't have the capacity to do. But again, to me, that's a legislative issue, not an issue for the redistricting commission. And a fight that we may want to, be involved in come January when the legislature comes back.
Any other comments, questions, concerns about the resolution?
I guess just what do we do with it now?
Well, I was going to say, are we looking for a motion to approve the resolution at tonight's meeting, or what is your hope, Dave?
And my hope is that, yes, that we would approve this tonight and send it off to the redistricting commission so that they know early on how at least this supervisory union, and then I'll make a similar motion at our Ludlow and Holly board.
Right.
How both the supervisory union and the component boards, how they feel about mergers.
Is somebody ready to make that motion tonight?
I'll move that we adopt this resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussions? Are we still, because I know a bunch of us got booted out there for a couple minutes, are we still fully quorumed here?
You're here, Katie's still here. Yeah, you still got
Okay. And so any discussion about the resolution, additional discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve and send off the resolution as read by Dave, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. It has been approved.
Yeah, so then I have one more idea. And that is that I don't know anything about the unions and districts that surround us that we're likely to get merged, with. And it seems that it would be to our advantage to express an opinion, say, we'd rather be with Wyndham Northeast than with Mill River or with, okay? And so the question is, how do we, Lane, maybe the superintendents of these neighboring unions or districts.
They need choice.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I guess what I would suggest is that we have informal discussions with some of the neighboring unions or districts to try to figure out, which ones are more compatible with the way we like to work with our goals, and whether Lane should do that, whether board leadership, wants to be involved in that. Yeah. I mean, I only know a little bit about, one of the basic questions, do we go east or do we go west? We can't merge, I think, both with Mill River and with Springfield, then it's just too far. I mean, the distance would be too great.
Right.
And I don't know, of course, whether Mill River is going to want to hook up with other Rutland County schools. And then the whole Manchester Union, I mean, they're a strange one, because of the independent schools. Okay? And so again, right now, I don't have any opinions yet because I don't have any knowledge about who we'd be better off combining with. And the question is how we get the information in order to do that. Do you have thoughts about that, Wayne?
My guess is that the focus is going to be around on centralizing the districts on the technical centers as best they can, right? Because those technical centers have to serve a region. There's only so many of them. And so I think that that's going to be heavily considered as they do their redistricting work.
Right, but at least in theory, we could go with Rutland, right? Or we could go with Springfield.
Yeah, I would, we'd probably be worth getting a really good trained facilitator to help with this, but I think it would be kind of neat to have like the chair and the second in command of each board, you know, in the region just get together and start talking. But superintendents, we already are. I mean, so a lot of the discussion is around that idea of the technical center.
Is that something you could facilitate through the superintendent's, you know, your regional meetings and then organize? Because I think there could be a lot of benefit to that. I also, you know, right now sitting here, I know, you know, Ludlow Mount Holly board is probably going to be split, right? Most people are going to want to go toward the imaginary southern entity, assuming maybe that would be Springfield or who knows, right? Whereas Mount Holly's really going to look for that Rutland connection, and how we manage that even would be important, I think. But I think that's a really great idea. And I don't know, Lane, can you facilitate that through your regional meetings somehow?
Yeah. So we're talking about getting membership from each of the regional boards together just to make sure it's clear. Is that what we're considering? Because that's something that I could set up. I can talk with the VSA or the Principals Association and find somebody who could facilitate that, and then make sure that, you know, if you got that kind of collection of people together, are we doing it right? Right, with open meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if it were to start out as sort of informational, like I really like that idea that Dave had, but I'm also thinking, again, like, we don't really know what the rules are yet. I don't anticipate we're going to get a whole lot of choice, but if we are sort of ahead of the curve and sort of being heard and sort of knowing what the rules are, and then bringing that back to make decisions or to try to influence how this all goes down, it might be very interesting to see how it all works. I guess that's what I'm looking.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I think that if we tell the redistricting commission, we'd rather be with Springfield and Wyndham Northeast than with Mill River and Rutland or Manchester, you know, that whether they won't automatically follow what we want to do, because, you know, I'm sure that it's just not possible to take the preference of every single one, right? But I'm sure they'll listen to it.
Right.
My question is whether it's better to have one huge meeting, you know, because like Wyndham Northeast, they sort of have to decide, do they want to look north to us or do they want to look south to Brattleboro, right? Or do we want to have a series of sort of informal one-on-ones, you know, like where Lane and one or two people from the board meet, say with Springfield, say with some, you know, with Wyndham Northeast, with any of the other neighboring people, just to have informal discussion to get a sense of compatibility and what it would be like working with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really positive idea. And I guess what I'm thinking is, I'm not sure that we, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, have a very good handle on that. Whereas maybe if Lane goes to the regional superintendents meetings and they can kind of set up some parameters and say, hey, this is a idea that's coming out of the TRSU, and you know, like what might that look like? And then they could sort of initiate it and make it happen in a way that is most impactful, purposeful. I don't know what the right word is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're.
Yeah. So whether then it turned into more informational or more directive, or how big the meeting got, would really sort of depend on their expertise. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, right. And depending on your schedule of meetings, I mean, you know, and I mean, I assume you probably also have informal contact with neighboring superintendents,
Oh, yeah.
right?
But I think, and so see if this makes sense based upon what Kelly is saying, is I think one of the things that I could do, and it would probably get things to work a little bit quicker, is, you know, talk with the Superintendent's Association, say, hey, can we pull together a one-day summit? And at the summit, the purpose of it is to get some school board members and superintendents that logically might end up together to sit down and start to talk with each other about how they operate, what they're comfortable with, what they're not, with the purpose of being able to walk away from that meeting to be able to be informed enough to write a meaningful communication to the redistricting board about what each district wants. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Again, I'm making it up off the cuff, so you.
Right, right.
Yeah, no, I think as long as they can move quickly enough, right, that seems like a good idea. You know, anytime you doing anything statewide, there's a risk that you know, it's February before they come up with a recommendation. It's too late.
It's something that if the Vermont Superintendents Association doesn't feel that it could do in a quick enough timeline, we might be able to just get a facilitator from them to just do our region. It would just be us. But I think it might be valuable for it to happen across the state.
And I think having a facilitator is necessary.
Certainly is.
All right.
Okay, you don't
Any
need-
other discussion about that?
I'll follow up.
Okay.
It's a really good idea.
Okay, I think that's all.
All right. Moving on. Oh, sorry. It's legislative update, committee update.
You don't really have one. I mean, most of what was important was covered by David in that discussion. But the intent is that the legislative update committee, I think through Green Mountain, is to get up and running again, to be able to kind of report out. And so the hope will be that in the future, once that's up and running, is that, you know, we'll be able to do a report here about what they're discovering and the work that they're doing.
Perfect. Thank you. Public comment? I can't see the.
I don't think we have any public here. Donovan and Kate, but I don't see any hands.
No public comment. I'm just giving an opportunity and hearing none. Board comment.
I have two things that I think best fit in board comment. The first is that as messy as education research is, the one change or structural change that very much predicts high school performance is a later start time. It's really hard to do, especially when there's a bunch of individual districts, but it matters a lot for both average performance and reducing disparities in performance. So just with the piece of however we are all going to get combined and thrown in together, that is a time when changing that schedule statewide and having the power of the entire state to hopefully maybe even change it region-wide so that sports and everything else still work out. It's worth doing. No matter how hard it is, the fact that you see performance go up drastically and quickly, it's worth doing.
Yeah, I've heard the same things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the research is just like amazing. There's nothing else you could do that has that big of an impact.
What time do we start at Green Mountain?
7:45.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, no, like the relationship in like 30-minute increments to performance is just,
There were schools in Massachusetts, a lot of them had 9 o'clock and the start times in that region. One of the things that made it easy for them to do that was because right in the east, it gets dark early, so it's hard to get the sporting events in, right, if the school day ends later. They all just built turf fields with lights, solved the problem. Yeah, so that it made it easy for them to do. It doesn't mean you have to,
Yeah.
but $50,000, put some lights on the fields and at every school, and you're good to go. Make it real easy, wouldn't impact anything.
Like,
Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep saying that over and over again. Or writing it or whatever I need to do.
Do you want that to be a communication to as a part of the draft that we're gonna put together?
Yeah, I would be happy to draft that or write it or cite whatever, cite that literature.
And so right now, can each district set its starting times? Yes, okay.
And your contract, I believe, allows the board to determine those times. I think it's actually written in there that way. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it is.
And the second piece is somewhat in terms of ownership linkage. I am the parent of what will be a Green Mountain 7th grader, and I've heard from other parents of Green Mountain 7th graders, almost entirely from Cavendish, but it's been a little bit broader than that as well. That communication has been really hard. There's not a clear person to contact if you have any questions. There is now an event scheduled for the Monday before school starts, that's specifically for 7th graders and their families, which is great. But multiple people have received that flyer as the response to their question, and there are some people who have not received the flyer. I don't know if they're on the list or not on the list or how they should get on the list. So there's anxiety around that communication. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
Thank you. I will also just really quickly piggyback your comment, your first one. I know certain districts near and dear to my heart, just moved their start time about 15 minutes, and tardies and absences have drastically reduced by I think initially it was over 20%. I don't know if it still sits at that number, which is also a positive impact of that. So I agree. Wow. Any other board comment?
Thank you.
No? All right. Next meeting, which will be on the 12th. It's not listed here, but the workshop, the retreat will be on the 12th, and then our regular meeting will be September 4th at 6. This says Ludlow Elementary School, which is right because you're in Cavendish now. Any other meetings that we're not thinking of? No? Perfect. And then the TRSU board self-evaluation, we'll do that. And then we have the added item and then executive session. So board members were given and read the agenda and background materials prior to the meeting.
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't think they're even fire starters again.
I'm missing whatever's being said, sorry. No. Board members are respectful of each other, the public and administration. I think we were, and I'm not hearing any different. Okay. We handled conflict openly and constructively.
Good.
Good.
Yes.
Board members focused on the role and responsibility of the board.
Yes.
So,
And we acted as a team once a decision had been made and worked collaboratively throughout that decision-making process.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. All right, then going back up, we added in a personnel Lane. Do you want to just say? Yeah.
I don't think we need to do this in executive session if we keep it general, because we'd have to come out of executive session and kind of state our reasons for the decision. So we have a Cavendish staff member who's had a recent diagnosis and for health concerns would like to have the board allow her out of the contract. Based upon, even talking a little bit with Emma today and then my own knowledge of it, I think I would recommend the board to allow her out. And I'll leave it at that. If there's other questions that we should probably.
She's a TRSU employee, not a Cavendish. Okay.
Works at Cavendish, but
Right, yeah.
And that's her preference?
yeah, she came and asked.
I move that we release this person from their contract.
Second.
Is there discussion about releasing this person from their contract? Have they presented with a formal request for it, Lane, just for a formality? I don't.
Yeah, she came in and sat down with me and asked for me to request it with the board. If the board approves it, then what would happen is I'd have her put that down in writing, and then we'd be able to move forward and open up the position for hire.
Okay. All right, any other questions or discussion?
So we're authorizing the superintendent to release her, is that?
Yes, that's
the way the motion will work?
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
All right, so motion to allow Lane to allow this personnel to, break their contract with our district. All those in favor?
Aye.
And anybody opposed?
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. And then we do have to enter executive session, and I would ask that we move that the board finds premature public knowledge regarding the contract strategy for negotiations with the transportation director would place the board at a substantial disadvantage. Somebody want to make that motion?
I move that the board enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313 to discuss a strategy for contract negotiations with the transportation director.
Perfect. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right.
You're approving both. Yeah.
Kelly,
Yes.
Different motion.
Oh, sorry.
because Kelly read the first one, but who moved that one? Because you read the second one.
Okay.
Move the first one.
Okay,
I'll move, right?
Yes. Sorry, I jumped ahead. And
That's okay. So have we now, because I'm sorry, when there was a lot of talking over each other and it was hard to hear, have we made a motion on the first part that moving, that the board finds it premature public knowledge? Have we moved on that one?
Yeah, I moved it, Lisa seconded it.
Okay, and so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Are you, okay, Katie's good. Okay, and then I think Lisa moved that the board enter executive session pursuant to 313A to discuss strategy for contract negotiations with the transportation director, inviting the transportation director?
No, she made the request of me to present.
Okay, and
But inviting Lane and Cheryl.
Carol, okay. And then Dave, did you second that?
I seconded that.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, and then Lane, can you make sure we are truly in executive session?
So 7:29.
Are you?
There you go. You're ready. I let the people.
All right, so we are back at 7:48. And at this time, we are taking no action. So I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anybody opposed? All right. Have a great night, everybody.